We had the pleasure of arriving at the country villa early in the morning with my mother-in-law. There was no traffic, it wasn't hot, and it was very comfortable. We did chores all day, showered as darkness fell. Mother-in-law would set the table, and I would make baked hams from the meat. My mother-in-law was a pleasure to be with. We talked and drank together. Admittedly, I admired her both as a person and her beautiful figure and very large breasts. Sometimes from the second floor, I would watch her bent over working in the garden, and I loved what I saw. I openly told everyone that if my mother-in-law was younger, I would prefer to live with her rather than with my wife. She had a fiery temper, and on the summer veranda she was preparing appetizers while I stayed outside fighting mosquitoes and grilling sausages. The sausages were almost ready when two familiar mother-in-laws who lived on the neighboring property came running in at the delicious aroma. They were two friends of my mother-in-law, both about the same age and slim in appearance. They greeted me and went straight to my mother-in-law's house. I entered the house just as they were about to leave. My mother-in-law wasted no time in informing me that she had received an invitation to a birthday party and simply could not refuse. In response, I suggested that she at least distract herself and get some rest, and I would save a piece of meat for the next day and go to bed as I was feeling a bit tired. Without delaying, my mother-in-law hurriedly dressed, while I discreetly slipped $50 into my pocket and went upstairs, bringing a bottle of champagne and a few pieces of meat with me. I slowly savored my drink, gradually getting into a more festive mood. Suddenly, I heard the gate creak open. It was my mother-in-law, accompanied by her friends, whom she thanked profusely for a delightful evening. From the sound of her voice, she had clearly enjoyed herself. I came down the stairs, intending to help her to bed, but she declined, expressing her desire to continue the party. Naturally, I welcomed such a lively mother-in-law, as I was not averse to having fun myself. We sat down at the table and started talking about various topics. My mother-in-law confessed her loneliness to me, and I gave her a helping hand and poured her another drink. Suddenly she exclaimed, "Why are we just sitting here? Let's put on some music and dance." Without thinking, I chose a slow tune, took my mother-in-law's hand, and we began to dance. As we moved together, my mother-in-law snuggled closer and closer to me, perhaps feeling slightly dizzy or for some other reason. Our dance was unusually graceful, and when our eyes met, a spark passed between us. At that moment, everything became clear, and I no longer hid my feelings. I realized that the next morning I would be ashamed. However, in the back of my mind, I also realized that this could be my first and last opportunity, which I took. The next morning, my mother-in-law took a long shower. She came out of it refreshed and satisfied. The only hint of our night of dancing was in her gait. She couldn't remember what had happened after she was brought into the house. I assured her that she had simply gone to bed. Uncertainty plagues me at times. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. Should I disclose what actually happened to my mother-in-law after she was brought into the house and, as I claim, she just went to bed? Or is it wise to remain silent? Please advise me on the best way to proceed. I am tormented by the thought that she will remember what happened, and then I will feel bad. Since my childhood, I have always been an obedient person. I went to school, did my studies, and participated in sports activities. I lived in a small town with parents who worked hard to provide me with everything I needed. Despite this, I constantly listened to the advice of my father and mother. My father was often late at work without a good reason, which caused my mother great suffering. At first, as a child, I did not understand this situation. However, as I grew up, I began to spend more time on the internet. It was during this period that I learned about my father's affair with another woman. Although I foresaw the inevitable outcome, I was powerless to change further developments. Witnessing my mother's deep love for my father and the subsequent anguish and tears she endured was a profound shock to me. I felt intense revulsion at the thought that my parents might separate. After graduating from a prestigious high school, I enrolled in college to continue my studies. There, I made new friendships. After graduating from college, I would return home, devote my days to my studies, and socialize with friends in the evenings. One fateful day, when I returned home, I found my mom in tears. She confessed to me that she had seen my father in the company of another woman as they were returning from the store. Despite my attempts to comfort her, she firmly informed me of her decision to begin divorce proceedings. I deeply sympathized with my father, but I understood my mother's point of view as well. My mother shed tears at first, but eventually pulled herself together. When my father came home from work, my mother told him everything. He realized that the situation was the way it was because of his own actions. So he packed his things and left. About 2 months have passed since then. I began to notice a change in my mom's behavior when she would come home from work, glowing with happiness. When I inquired as to the reason for her joy, she happily informed me that she was being courted by a man she liked. After another month, Frank moved into our house. He was now my stepfather and moved in with us. I didn't mind this arrangement as long as it made my mother happy. Time flew by quickly, and one evening while I was watching TV, I heard some noise coming from their bedroom. Discreetly, I tiptoed down the hallway to the slightly ajar bedroom door. Looking inside, I saw something that completely amazed me. My stepfather and my mother were making love. I could not take my eyes off the sight, which made a deep impression on me. I had a strong desire to repeat what I had seen, but I managed to restrain myself and, stepping away from the door, headed back to my room. All night I couldn't sleep because my mind was spinning with thoughts about what I had seen. The images wouldn't come out of my head, and it wasn't until morning that I finally fell asleep. I woke up to someone gently touching my shoulders and calling my name softly. When I opened my eyes, my stepfather was standing in front of me, dressed only in shorts and a tank top. In my sleepy state, I tried to comprehend the situation. As I started to wipe my eyes, it dawned on me that this was not a dream. Frank urged me to wake up, warning me that I would oversleep and miss school. Reluctantly, I got out of bed, realizing that my nightgown was barely covering some places. My stepfather was surprised and stood in shock at what he saw. Then he said, "I didn't mean to see that. I'm sorry." But I didn't let him finish. I walked over to him and put my arms around his neck. He looked a little embarrassed and then pulled me to him and kissed me. I returned his kiss and he laid me down on the bed. My mom had no idea, and while she was away, my stepdad spent a lot of time with me, and we had fun for hours on end. A month later, I met a guy named Jerry. He was a couple years older than me, and we met at a party. I fell in love with him and wanted to introduce him to my mom as soon as possible. So the day came. I invited Jerry over to our house at 7 o'clock in the evening. At exactly 7, there was a knock on the door. It was him. He came with 2 bouquets of roses, one for me and one for my mom. Stepdad was home too. Jerry entered the house. My stepfather came out to meet him. When he saw Jerry, he was shocked. "Son?" Frank said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" Here I was shocked. It turns out that Jerry is his son, but he lives with my mom, and with my stepdad practically does not communicate. My stepdad wasn't happy, and he wanted me to stop seeing Jerry. You know why. But I don't care. I want to marry Jerry, and nobody's gonna stop me.